Hi everyone, this is the homework lesson recording for IM1 for August 20th, 2020. So we did the MDTP testing, so we didn't actually have a lesson. So this is in lieu of the lesson that you're just going to watch a short video, do some problems, and then you're going to watch another Edpuzzle video, and that's going to be your homework. So it's pretty light today. Okay, so order of operations. Well, hopefully you've already watched some videos and you've already done some practice problems, so you have some understanding, and I believe you've also done this in middle school as well. Well, order of operation, we need those because we need to be very clear on which operations are going to go first. Like if you have addition, parentheses, or exponents, or division, which orders are going to go first, right? So let's recap. So at the top, parentheses and brackets, and then second after that is other exponents, and then third is multiplication or division, and we always go from left to right, and then fourth is addition or subtraction. So you probably remembered it as memorizing PAMDAS, but now that we're in high school, we're going to expand that a little bit and call that, instead of parentheses or brackets, we're going to expand it a little bit and call that grouping symbols, because we are going to expand that to include a few more functions. So like part of the video you're going to be watching is absolute value function, and that is part of the grouping symbol, which means it's right at the top. You need to evaluate what's inside the absolute value function first. Other grouping symbols include fraction lines. If you see a fraction line, and we'll see some examples of that in a little while, as well as the typical parentheses, square brackets, and so on and so forth that you've always seen. Okay, so grouping symbols are the first thing. If you ever see those, that means you need to evaluate that first, and then followed by exponents, then multiplication, division, and then finally addition and subtraction. That's what it tells us. So before we get into it, let's analyze all the symbols first. So if you have an expression like this rectangle represents some unknown number. It does not really matter what the number is, okay? So you have a number, subtract, number, and what's this symbol? It's multiplication, right? By some number. So you have subtraction operation and multiplication operations. So in this case, between subtraction and multiplication, which would you do first? Which would you evaluate first? That's right, because multiplication and division is higher than addition and subtraction, we need to do multiplication first, right? Which means that we need to evaluate this expression first. And then whatever that is, we're going to subtract from the first number. Let's do another example. What about this? What do you notice here? Well, there's some number, multiply, number, addition, number, multiply, number, and subtraction by a number. Okay? So we see multiplication, addition, multiplication, and then subtraction. So which one should we do first? Again, multiplication is before addition or subtraction, and we always go from left to right. So that means we're going to do multiplication, division first. So we're going to start with this, evaluating these two expressions, and then finally we're going to multiply these two numbers, and then we're going to add them together, and then from that we're going to subtract the very last number. What about this? What do you see here? Well, we see addition, and we see addition here and subtraction. Do you see something else? Yes, there's parentheses. Okay, what does parentheses mean? That means you need to evaluate what's inside first. Okay, so but before we get into that, there is no operation between some number and these parentheses. Is there any operation? Well, when there is just a number right next to the parentheses, there is a default operation which says multiply. Okay, so this is very different to when you see a plus or minus sign in front of parentheses. If you see a minus sign, that means the default number indeed is -1. So that's a special case. But this is just a number being multiplied to these parentheses. So that means we have a multiplication. We can almost put a multiplication symbol right there just so that we do not forget. But this is a grouping symbol. Parenthesis is a grouping symbol, so we need to do that first. And then finally, oops, let me go back to that slide. And then after you've done that, you're going to multiply what you've evaluated to the multiply to this number. And then once you've done this, you're going to add that result to this number. And then once you've done that, you're going to finally subtract this number from whatever you had as a result. Okay, that's how the order goes. All right, what about this? So a number multiplied by a number plus number multiplied by, what is this? Well, hopefully you're telling me this is the exponent. Okay, exponent is right here. Exponent is pretty high up. It's right below the grouping symbol. That means after parentheses and absolute value functions or things like that, its exponents are pretty high up. So that means we need to evaluate exponents first, and which is here, right here. Okay, so we need to evaluate this, then multiply by this number, whatever the number is. Once I've done that, I also need to multiply these two numbers and then add them together, then finally subtract the number. So there are many different steps, but you need to have a very clear understanding of which order you're going to go in. What about this? This is the fraction line that I was telling you about, that this is a grouping symbol. Okay, this is a fraction line which is like a division, but because this is a fraction line with multiple terms, that means it's almost as if there is a invisible parenthesis right there. So you need to evaluate what's at the top first and then what's at the bottom too. Okay, so it's a grouping symbol because fraction line is a grouping symbol just like parenthesis. So guys, at this point you should be taking notes, maybe taking notes like this, and maybe writing things like fraction line is a grouping symbol just like parenthesis, because this is something relatively new. Okay, so in this case you are going to be evaluating, adding these two numbers first, and then you're going to divide that by this number, and then after you're done with that, adding it to this number. Oh no, you're not adding it to this number. You need to evaluate these two because multiplication is before addition. So you need to evaluate these two first and then add to whatever you had as a result of this. Okay, so let's do some example. So please take notes. If you have -3 minus 2 times 5, that's a multiplication symbol, right? So -3 minus 2 multiplied by 5. I see a lot of negative signs here. So those negative signs could be interpreted as a negative number, or it could be interpreted as subtraction operation. So which is it? Well, let's consider both scenario. Okay, does this negative sign mean negative or subtract? We know that is definitely -3 because this cannot be subtract 3. You have to be, if you are using subtraction, you need to be subtracting from something, some number. So this has to be a -3. That's not in question. And that number is 5, which we are multiplying it to whatever this number is. So the first scenario is we might consider this as a +2, and that we see this as a subtraction, like that. Another scenario would be if we have a -3 right here, and then a number multiplying by 5, but instead of seeing that as subtract 2, we're going to see that as a -2. So that's a -2 here. What's the operation between -3 and -2? The operation will be plus. We're adding a negative number. Remember what we said? Subtracting a number is same as adding its opposite. So subtracting a number, subtracting 2, is like adding what is opposite of +2. It's -2, right? That's exactly what we talked about before. So that means we have to evaluate these two first. Why? Because multiplication division is before addition and subtraction. So we're going to multiply 2 and 5, and you get 10. So 3 minus 10 is just -13. What about here? Well, if you interpret this as -2, we're going to multiply -2 by 5, and you get negative 10, but you still are adding it to negative 3 because the operation here is positive. Okay, it's not negative negative, it's positive. So it's going to be negative 3 plus negative 10, so that becomes negative 13. Look, the answers are exactly the same. So either way will be fine, but you just need to be consistent. And you have to be very clear on what you're doing. You can't sort of just randomly say, oh, I think I'm going to do negative here or subtract here, because then you're going to be making mistakes. Okay, all right, example 2. What about in this case? You have 12 minus 7 in parentheses, and then 3, and then 2. Which is the highest order? Okay, do we have any grouping symbol? Yeah, that's the parenthesis. So we need to evaluate that first. 12 minus 7 is 5, and then multiply that by 3, and then add 2 to it. That gives me, oh, that comes to this question. What's the operation between 3 and this parenthesis 5? That is multiplication. Okay, that's what it means. So 3 times 5 plus 2. What's 3 times 5? That's going to be 15. And we do this first, not because it's on the left hand side, but because it's multiplication, division is before addition. So 3 times 5 is 15, then finally plus 2, and that leaves us with 17. Okay, let's do another example. All right, so then 2 multiplied by 3 with all fraction line, 2 minus 5 plus 7 minus 1. That looks a little bit more complicated, right? So how do we deal with it? Well, what do we see? Remember what we said about this line? It's called fraction line, and it is a grouping symbol. Okay, so what we're saying is this is one group, this is another group. That means we need to evaluate the top group, one group first, and another group second, and then you need to do the division. Okay, so what's 2 times 3? 2 times 3 is 6. And what's 2 minus 5? 2 minus 5 is, let's see, the signs are different. That means we're gonna find the difference between 5 and 2. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and the negative sign, the 5 is the bigger number between 2 and 5, and it has a negative sign, so it's going to be the answer is going to be negative 3. So it's 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 minus 5 is negative 3, and then to it we need to still add 7 and subtract 1. Notice I am doing one step at a time. I'm not combining too many steps, because when you do that you're going to make mistakes. Okay, and then we have to subtract negative 3, or we have to add negative 3 plus 7, which is positive 4 minus 1. Finally, that leaves us with 6 over, you can't see it, but 6 over 3, which is same as 2. You can't really see it right now. Okay, so at this point, I am going to give you some problems for you to do. So this is part of your homework. You have 8 problems for you to do at home. And when we return on Tuesday, you'll be getting into your groups to discuss your solutions. So you need to be ready, because your teammates are going to be counting on you to have done it, so that you can have a rich discussion, as well as just make sure that you really understand and you're able to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So I'm going to show you the 8 problems. So here it is. So you should pause the video and try to do the problems yourself. Okay, and I'm going to show you the other one because I'm going to be running out of time too. Okay, so this is the second slide. So these are all the problems that you need to be working on. Okay, the second part of the homework is for you to watch a 13-minute puzzle video. Okay, that should really take you 13 minutes plus some answering the question time. So it should not be so bad, and hopefully watching video is not so horrible for you. So that is part of the reason I am assigning videos as part of your homework, so that we can spend the class time doing practice problems more than me talking. So that's our goal. Okay, so thank you for watching, and and if you ever get stuck, I am available, so please come to study hall. Take care. Bye-bye.